costing the NHS 1.5 billion. Pretty small beer by comparison with the 210 billion on quangos and the 100 billion on EU regulation. So there are now 3,000 EU laws on our statute books, every one of them illegal. And it started very gently. It started with drinking and driving was their first one. And that was a gentle way in, because a lot of people think, well, you shouldn't really drink and drive, it's dangerous. But actually, some people have been drinking and driving for 40 bloody years and never had an accident, but they don't care about that. So that was the first one, because, you know, some people could say that's okay. Then they came up with seatbelts. And this went right across the European Union. It wasn't just us, these. And again, people would say, well, yeah, all right, I can see the point in seatbelts. And then they started hitting a bit harder. So we got EU Regulation 9767, which called for the closing of our post offices. And then, of course, they hit our pubs with pricing. So you can now go into a supermarket and buy 6 cans of beer for about a couple of quid, whereas if you go into a pub, 6 cans of beer will cost you about 18 quid. So we are now losing pubs at the rate of 10 a week, losing 3 a week in Ireland. And why do they want to do that?
Stop us gathering.
Yes, absolutely. And they absolutely hate the British village. They don't really have villages in Europe, not like we do. And everyone sort of chats in the church and the pub and they meet in the post office. They don't like that. So they are taking our villages apart piece by closing the post offices and closing the pubs. Does this happen to Deutsche Post? No. Deutsche Post makes 2 billion a year, always has done, and they launched DHL, the worldwide courier, which makes about the same again. So their post office is getting more and more powerful, while ours is being made weaker all the time. And I'd just like to digress a bit and move over to chemotherapy, which is close to my heart. The chemotherapy industry is 795 billion turnover. It's half as big as the entire GDP of Britain, and because it's mostly American-based. Their men, their directors, sit on the board of Cancer Research UK, Macmillan Nurses. They sit on the board of government, legal, medical bodies, and over the last 40 years, they have changed our British laws. They're mostly American, well, they're using a lot of British people, so that only their product, the poison of chemotherapy, is allowed to be prescribed for cancer. Now, over those 40 years, there have been absolutely brilliant breakthroughs in cancer, every single one of which is denied to the British people. And I went to an anti-EU meeting that changed my life in the University of Ghent in Belgium, because I was working in Brussels. And Ian R. Crane was the speaker. Hands up who's heard of Ian R. Crane. Very good speaker. He started off his talk by saying, I can prove to you that the newspapers conceal things. If there was a cure for cancer, you'd all know about it, wouldn't you? And we all said yes, 200 of us. And he said, right, it's called GC Math. Now put it up your hands, all of you who's heard of it. Not one hand went up. You heard of it?
Yes.
Good God.
What was it?
GC math.
And you told me about it.
So I went back to my flat and I stuck GC math into Google, and there it was, about 30 research papers in those days. I struggled through the first two with words 40 characters long, one of which I can say, which is alpha N acetylgalactosaminidase. It took me about 6 months to learn to say it, but I thought I ought to learn one of them. And it gave me blinding headaches, but I realised by the time I got through the second paper that the truth was absolutely incontrovertible. And these scientists are from 8 different nations. And basically, all healthy people have GC math inside them. You have it inside you now. And every day, your GC math, which has 6 direct attacks on cancer, kills between 10,000 and 100,000 cancer cells. And what happens is, if you have a hell of a shock, like your house gets repossessed or your car gets stolen or you get pneumonia or something like that, that gives cancer a chance to prevent your body producing its own GC math. That collapses the immune system as well. You lose your 6 attacks on cancer, cancer takes over, and you kick the bucket in typically about 5 years. Now this was, and then, so what you can do is you can extract the GC math from healthy people, give it to those who can't make their own anymore, and in about a year it'll get rid of stage 4 cancer with no side effects. Now that was discovered 23 years ago by a Dr. Yamamoto. 180 scientists have worked on it since, and they still managed to keep it secret from the public. So, meanwhile, everyone is being pumped full of chemotherapy, which is a poison. It wrecks their immune system, it wrecks their body, their hair falls out, and they die an excruciatingly painful death, which is completely irrelevant as far as they're concerned, because they charge $50,000 a year for it. They make $795 billion. It's murder for profit, and they love it. And Lord Maurice Saatchi, who used to be chairman of the Conservative Party, and who was partner in Saatchi Advertising, he had to watch his wife, the novelist Josephine Hart, die, while his doctor told him that under law, the only thing he can give her is chemotherapy, and it'll shorten her life. So she died. So he brought in the Medical Innovation Bill into the House of Lords. And I said at the time, this doesn't stand a hope in hell. The chemotherapy lobby will wipe it out. And who was the man that wiped it out? Did they have to lobby 500 MPs to wipe it out? Sorry?
One man, probably.
One man stopped it.
Ken Clark?
No, it wasn't actually. They only had to lobby one man. You're on the right track, all of you, but it was actually Jeremy Hunt, the Minister for Health. He stopped it. So we'll move on now to Codex Alimentaris, which of course is the EU's attempts to withdraw vitamins from us. Now, if vitamins were removed from our food, we'd all be dead in a couple of months. But vitamins do a hell of a lot of good apart from that. If you take 5,000 IU of vitamin D a day, you won't get cancer. Now, vitamins are incredibly important. You can do enormous amount with vitamins. In fact, you can usually do more with vitamins than you can with drugs. And of course, vitamins are good for you, drugs are bad. But of course, the pharmaceutical industry, being a $1 trillion industry in total, doesn't want you to use vitamins, they want you to use drugs. And that is one reason why they are bringing in Codex Alimentarius, where the government controls the vitamins and can withdraw them from us. So, Codex Alimentarius is a way to kill people. The NHS is being used as a way to kill people. And that very famous Bilderberger, who owns Microsoft, Bill Gates, actually goes around making speeches where he puts a big equation up on the board and he has P being people or the population. And the big problem is this P. If you got rid of the P, the world would be wonderful. And they all think like that. They think they need 500,000 people to keep themselves in the way they are accustomed: jets, yachts, nice homes. And they want the other 6 billion of us wiped out. Now that's probably above the level of the Bilderbergers, but I only fight the EU. You've got to stop somewhere, so I don't actually go up that high. 95% of crime is committed by who? Very good answer. Very good answer. 95% of crime is committed by who?
The government.
Absolutely right. The government. So we just have this £10 trillion crime where a nation that's been going for 3,500 years has been abolished with 6 treaties. That's a £10 billion crime. They killed 1 million in Iraq. The amount of damage government does is so much bigger than any other part of society, it's ridiculous. I mean, you take criminals. You know, what do criminals do? Well, I mean, they really can't murder more than 100 a year. But the government's murdering 160,000 a year, just in the NHS. And then every now and then, a load more with fraudulent wars. They closed down our heavy industry. That was orders from the European Union. So Margaret Thatcher was ordered to do this. And she did a great job. She did close down heavy industry as she was ordered. She was a Bilderberger. She couldn't have become Prime Minister unless she's a Bilderberger. No one couldn't be Prime Minister in England unless you are a Bilderberger. So she had to be interviewed, drafted and accepted by the Bilderbergers before she could be Prime Minister. But in the 10th year of her reign, she realised that the EU was a dictatorship and the Bilderbergers were building it. So she made her Bruges speech, where she opposed the European Union. Within 1 year, the 7 other Bilderbergers in her cabinet had her out on the street in tears. And that would happen to David Cameron if he opposed EU policy. If, for example, he abolished the 8,000 quangos and bans the budget. And the 8,500 quangos, run by Common Purpose, feed charities. So what happens is the National Autistic Society, for example, there's an AGM coming up, and there's a notice passed out amongst Common Purpose members. I actually have a copy of the notice, it's a PDF file, encouraging as many members as possible to go to the AGM. They vote out the old people, you know, all the do-gooders, the people who really want to help autistic kids, and they put themselves in. And then they contact other Common Purpose people in quangos They suck out the 210 billion budget from the Quangos, part of it, and it all ends up in private pockets. And you'll find that happening to charities all over Britain. And it's happened even to, what's it called, what's that woman's charity? What's the best-known women's group in the country called?
WRVS?
The WI, Women's Institute. It's happened to the Women's Institute. Okay. Do I understand I'm supposed to talk for a bit and then stop and we have a chat and then then we start again?
Yeah. Give it
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'd just like to point out, and then I'll stop, that David Cameron will never ever have an EU referendum.
Agreed.
When he was in opposition, he promised that as soon as he came to power, he would hold an EU referendum. Well, he came to power. And guess what? We didn't get an EU referendum. So he had to do something. So he said he'd give us a referendum in 5 years' time. Having already said it, so that's 10 years down the drain now already. But he did it in the most stupid way possible, deliberately. He went to pass a law which says there has to be an EU referendum in 5 years' time. Well, of course, the MPs have been chosen on the party list system for 30 years now. This is how they got 362 MPs to vote for the abolition of Britain in the Lisbon Treaty. You can only get into Parliament if you're pro-EU. And how, therefore, was he ever going to pass a law which says there will be a referendum in 5 years' time, when the majority of the people who are voting for it have been selected on the basis that they will always vote against it? Yeah? These people were only put up as MPs because they were pro-EU. So he knew it would never be passed, and of course it hasn't been passed. And so his lie's been exposed again. So all I can say is they're all rotten up that way.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, people. They say they keep changing things. If you notice now, our courts are now called the criminal justice system. Think about it.
It's not justice.
Criminal justice. Who gets the justice?
The criminals.
There you go. 20 minutes. We come back here at 9:45, please.
9:45. On the dot.
On the dot, please.
Thank you. David, that was brilliant. Thank you.
I have a handout here which you can pick up if you like. It's called 50 Reasons to Leave the EU.
Is that all? Only 50?
Film a page.
Turn this off.
Stuff I take in the morning is unbelievable. I've got a handful of pills.